staring at this while you're doing
3,
that.
2, 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Friday live marathon. 'Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is the wonderful The Day Ghost. Hello, Austin.
Oh, crap. Hold on, sorry. There we go.
Oh crap! What's going on?
The stream started playing and it had audio. My computer's so inconsistent on that. Sometimes it remembers that I have it muted, sometimes it doesn't.
Just the way you said that, I was like, we gonna need to start over? Like, what's going on? He's like, we're not live, are we? Yes, Austin, we're quite live right now.
Mm-hmm. No, I am very good at messing up takes, so we did it live.
We can't, yeah, but we can't do takes. People are watching us right now and wondering why we haven't started yet. Thanks a lot for being here with us, folks. Tonight we are going to watch we're jumping way ahead from the last thing we did with the show, and we're gonna watch, I guess, way ahead because we were doing stuff from the middle of season 1, and when the Venom sequel came out. And today we're gonna jump to the end and watch the last 5 episodes. We're going to do the Secret Wars 3-parter, which turns into the I really, really, really hate clones business, which sounds like it should be a adaptation of the Clone Saga, but it's actually Spider-Verse before we get to Spider-Verse. It's very loopy, but we're going to watch that and hang out with you tonight.
They straight up make fun of the Clone Saga in this episode.
They do. It's great. You can tell part of the reason they did this was because maybe they wanted to adapt that and then didn't get another season, so they couldn't do it.
Well, and they do some, like, not exactly the Clone Saga-y stuff, but they do some of that earlier in the season. Like, They do the whole arc with... In the comics, it's Gwen that comes back, but it's MJ here, and she melts into a Hydro Man.
And it's not just earlier in the season, it's the very thing that happens before this.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember where it fell in that line. Because I know there's, like, all the stuff with the elderly superheroes and whatnot.
Or
the Electro nonsense.
If the order that it aired is the same as the order that it's on Disney+, but that's the way I always watched it. I'm pretty sure that's right, because they were numbered. Like, I don't think this show had that X-Men problem. But it's weird because the end of that sets up Miles Warren going off to maybe make some Spider-Man clones. And then the very next thing that happens is Secret Wars. And then you get to the last episode, and it's like, yeah, psych, we're never getting to that. The show's done. And it's like, did they know they were canceled when they made, like, an episode 6 episodes before the end? It's very weird.
Which is funny, because that happens with Spectacular, too. They're also setting up Miles Warren to do the Clone Saga for Season 3.
Isn't that weird? And then Ultimate acts like it's gonna do more clone stuff than it. Like they set up a Miles Warren, and then their Miles Warren doesn't even do clone things. What is it with this character?
I don't know. Maybe they do it in that new Marvel Spider-Man show. I know they do like Spider Island and stuff. So
yeah, but
they do a lot of SWAT stuff.
But I watched the pilot for that and hated it, and really didn't want to watch any more of that.
No, we got to do some more for one of these Friday night shows. We got to do that entire show.
Oh.
We'll cover the entire thing.
Do we really? Man. I don't know. I'm not getting paid enough for that, I don't think. But anyway, everybody, thanks a lot for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started right now. If you want to watch it with us, make sure that you are looking at the first part of Secret Wars. It's in Season 5. It's Episode 9. It's on Disney+. It's called Arrival. And get it rigged up to timestamp 0. Get ready to press play when I say now. We're just about to do that. And Austin, are you ready on your end?
Yep. Oh, do
yes,
you have
sir.
any extra logos before your episode?
No, I don't think so, because we're both watching it in the same place this time. It's not a disc versus streaming.
Just making sure.
Hey, it's better than what I thought it was at first, where I thought your seconds were different than my seconds. We had time displacement from the Canada planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then last night on their Patreon Discord, we watched the Transformers trilogy, the first 3 Michael Bay movies, and the second movie really felt sped up to me in places, and I don't know if it was just because I had a headache and I was tired, but But I was like, why are the seconds on this so much faster? So I ended up quoting you.
Nobody, I'm flattered, I'm sure. Nobody knows what we're talking about.
It was very self-indulgent.
It was, yeah. Well, I don't know. I find myself feeling more self-indulgent whenever you're on the program, Austin.
Yeah, I'm a self-indulgent person. What can I say?
You bring that out in me. But we did an After Dark where we did a blind commentary, and we had syncing issues, and it was quite amusing. It took us half an hour before we could get to it. I'm still thinking about posting the actual commentary from that live on the channel, though. Or not live.
You should have. It was fun. You'll get really to hear Cap laugh hysterically like a madman for 5 minutes.
I lost it for 5 straight minutes because of the weirdest thing I've seen in an action scene in a long time. Yeah.
And that also had Spider-Man in it, so.
Yeah, but
and Clifford. It was a whole bunch
way.
of.
Yeah, it was a whole crossover thing. Yeah, it was the Geekvolution shared universe.
And it's locked behind a paywall.
John Kelling says, "Make sure seconds are effing seconds." Bustin' wants to know if I'm watching the right episode. Yes, this time I am. It's chapter 1.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Arrival. Remember when we got halfway through an episode of the Venom arc before I realized I wasn't watching the one actually, it was more than halfway. I think it was nearly the end.
It was nearly the end. I think there was like 5 minutes left.
I kept
you just really wanted
things.
to see Venom because you skipped that middle episode and went straight to Venom.
Yeah, and then you just thought I didn't care about what we were looking at, and I just wanted to talk about that stuff.
Well, I just thought it was funny because, the first episode ends with Peter Parker in the black suit looking in a window and seeing the reflection of Venom. And then for you, the next episode just opens with Venom. You're like, this is normal.
I should have known, but, I was running a show and thinking about other things, and I don't know. I still don't know how that happened. Busted Sim, are we watching 5 episodes tonight? Yes, we are. And we should start right now. Here we go. Don't press play yet. I shouldn't have said it like that. All right, everybody ready? Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
And that was the actual time to start that time.
It was that time. I'm real professional today. My 3-year-old Mikey has been running around the house the last couple days singing this song because I watched these with my kids in preparation for this, and he'd never seen the show before, so he just got obsessed with this theme song. He started asking us,
awesome.
What does radioactive mean?
Was he singing Spider Blood, or like most people, was he just coming up with his own
yeah, he was just making up stuff, and then it was just radioactive everything else, too. Like, it wasn't always just Spider-Man. It was like everything in the house was radioactive.
Because I always thought as a kid it was saying Spider Glider. Like, they kind of mixed Spider-Man with Green Goblin.
Oh, weird.
But that doesn't really make any sense.
Disney Plus does this weird thing with the intros where sometimes you'll get the proper one that was actually in the season, and sometimes you'll get the one from an earlier season.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think in the second or third part of this, it's a newer intro. And maybe they updated it for right now, but then, because I'm not sure when that happened. By the way, this Negative Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure there was an action figure of that. I think there were figures of almost every different iteration of Spider-Man. And I mean, this isn't like a different Spider-Man, but it's a different look for him because he's in Negative right now.
Well, Slot clearly watched this. This is the Negative Man Spider-Man, and then you have the Spider-Verse stuff after.
Yep.
But when I was a kid, I remember there was like a collection of like all the Spider-Men from the end of this, and that was like the big thing I wanted as a kid, and I never got it.
Did they make a figure of Madam Web? Because I never had that one, and I can't remember if they did that.
I'm not sure, but I never had one. I didn't know anybody that did. So.
I'm pretty sure there was a Beyonder.
That makes sense, yeah. He's not Jazzy Beyonder, though, so...
The end of the show is really unusual in that it gets an actual honest-to-God ending, which is, even for these kind of serialized cartoon shows, very, very few of them actually really did that. And it got merchandise all the way up to the end that was adapting stuff while they knew they were ending, and that's kind of unusual for that period, too.
That's cool though. Yeah, I've always, or maybe not at the time because I didn't know as much about comics as I do now, but I think it's really strange that we adapted Secret Wars in the Spider-Man show of all
Yeah.
the shows. Because I know you've read Secret Wars, but it's been a while,
It's
I'm
been a
sure.
while. It doesn't
But
stick with me because it's kind of just a big toy commercial.
it is,
This
yeah.
is too. I mean, immediately I just went to action figures.
But Spider-Man has a very, very small role in Secret Wars.
That's right, but this was the most popular. Well, debatably. I mean, X-Men was also really popular. But at this, I guess it's hard to say which of these shows was bigger at this point, actually. But X-Men had so much else always going on. Like, that was always like a big event show. So I can see why they would want to do it here instead of there. And also, I'm sure it just had a lot to do with what Semper wanted to adapt and wanted to make. Because, I mean, this was technically kind of a shared universe. It all existed in the same continuity, but they weren't talking to each other
Yeah.
most of the time. So they'd cross when they felt like it, but I'm sure that was just Semper going, what's a big exciting thing we could do at the end. He just as easily could have gone to Infinity Gauntlet or something.
Hmm. Yeah, he could have.
It's weird that none of these shows ever really did Thanos. And unless he shows up in Silver
He's
Surfer.
in Silver Surfer because they
couldn't
get rid
remember.
of the Lady Death thing, and it's like Lady Chaos or something like that.
That's
It's
right.
censored.
You know what? I did know that, but it's been so long. I went back and started watching that again because it's here, which is awesome. It's on Disney Plus, and I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of that again. I was gonna do a rewind on it. I never got around to it, but boy, that holds up. That show
Oh,
is
cool. I've never
watchable.
watched it.
Yeah, it's great. I think that show is almost objectively better than this and X-Men, just because it's easier to take seriously much of the time.
Oh, cool. The big thing I know from that is just that like Fox bumper where it's Silver Surfer and Hank from King of the Hill standing next to each other, which is very bizarre.
I think it's funny when the Beyonder shows up. He can't just have a name already. He's got to be clever about it. He's got to be like, I'm from Beyond. I guess you can call me, let me think about it a second, the Beyonder.
I guess you can call me the out-of-towner.
They could have easily had a conversation about it for a while. That's what Dan Slott would have done, right? Spider-Man would have been like, that name's stupid, and then they'd have to argue about it for a while.
Mm-hmm. There's my favorite thing ever from the show: Captain America and Red Skull just kind of like going like this at each other for all of eternity in a yellow
allowed
void.
to actually land blows.
Mm-hmm.
So everything about this situation is odd and contrived, of course, and it feels weirder until you know why the Beyonder is actually doing this, and then it's a little better, because it isn't actually the comic book Secret Wars thing where he wants to see what's stronger between good and evil and pit them up against each other. That's pretense to just put Spider-Man in a situation where he has to be a leader and see if he can actually trust him to take on Spider Carnage and stop the end of reality as we know it. But it's still a really weird way to do it, right? Like, I don't understand the rules of this exactly. It's like, okay, we're going to have this big battle between good versus evil so that Spider-Man can be tested as a leader. And we're going to let the villains have a year head start. Like, we're going to send them to this planet, this utopian planet, let them decimate it, totally take it over. Not really that concerned with all the people on that planet that probably died. Like, no big deal. I guess because it's really treated later on like the Beyonder is, extremely, benevolent and this great guy who's just trying to save the universe. And he's pretty utilitarian about this. He's like, I guess we can just let a bunch of these people on this planet die, ruin their whole society for the sake of the multiverse. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, what would have the Marvel comics characters done? Because they struggle to do anything in the comic Secret Wars, and they're dumped off at the same time.
That's a really good point. And they should have been dumped off at the same time here. Like, I don't know how this tells the Beyonder any more or less about Peter's ability as a leader. right? Like, why is it
yeah.
set up like this? Why does he handpick the villains, but Spider-Man gets to handpick his team? Like, why isn't it he picks a villain and Spider-Man is the hero, and each of them pick their teams?
Well, especially because Spider-Man doesn't get to pick his team for like the finale.
Yeah, he doesn't get to pick that team. So, like, what's the point of letting him pick this team?
He gets to pick his training team, but not his actual team. Yeah.
I don't really understand that. I also don't understand his choices for Spider-Man's team. When we get there, I'll never understand why there's just a human actor from essentially our world where Spider-Man's a fictitious character. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but I also don't understand in the last minute and a half of the series how that version of Spider-Man knows that they're about to go to his universe. He's like, the Beyonder's like, there's or Madam Web, there's one more place that you need to go, and then the actor is like, I think he means my universe, and I'm like, why though?
Because he needs to meet the creator.
Okay, but he's only the creator in that universe. Like, there's no. We don't do the Turtles Forever thing, and I kind of wish it had. There's a lot of Turtles Forever in this, weirdly, and or there's a lot of this in Turtles Forever, I guess I should say. But we could have said that was like the Genesis dimension, you know, that like Stan Lee creates that character, and then somehow that branches off into a bunch of different realities where Spider-Man is real. That's what we do in Turtles Forever with the Ninja Turtles, sort of. I mean, we basically say that the black and white Mirage Turtles are the original progenitor turtles, not that Eastman and Laird, like, in another universe, drew them. Although you do finally see that at the end of it, but I digress. Have you ever seen that?
No.
You should, it's great, but...
If this were me, I would have an awesome team with, like, Man-Thing, Blade, Ghost Rider, like, Howard the Duck. Way better team.
Blade's not a bad pick. I could make an argument for why every choice here is wrong.
I mean, I can understand certain ones like Cap and Iron Man.
I will never understand Iron Man. Iron Man seems like a giant liability. You know why? Because he is.
Because he also sucks in that Carnage episode. So you know what? Never mind.
Yeah, he's not good in the Carnage episode. It feels like almost weird foreshadowing for Spider Carnage, where it's like, you know, the only place Iron Man's been in this show? In the other episode with Carnage.
You should have picked the Whizzer over Iron Man. Like, Iron Man sucks in the show. You're right. No.
You also don't want Iron Man because you don't know how long you're going to have to be here, and what if he can't power his suit, and you don't know what powers his suit.
But not only that, like, he tackles Venom to the ground, and Venom just pushes him off, and then Iron Man's knocked out for the rest of that scene. Like, get him out of here.
And then ultimately, arguably the most useful member of his team is one of the bad guys who loses his bad guyness and joins them for an episode. He picks the entirety of the Fantastic Four, but one X-Men.
Yeah, that's a mistake. And Storm is a really strange choice, I think. You know, I always, as a kid, thought that was strange.
There's this one that has this power to control weather. What was her name? Oh, yeah, Storm! And then I'm like...
Well, you know what he should have been like? He should have been like, okay, I'm going to pick 4 X-Men. I'm going to pick Jean, Scott, Logan, and Storm.
Yeah, and... At first, I was thinking, you know, watching this, like, I guess he can't pick Jean because she's probably already gone because of Dark Phoenix, but I think she's back in the show at this point. I'm not sure actually how they line up season wise. I'm forgetting now, like, which thing, because X-Men's probably already done by now, right?
I would think so,
I think this show has 1 or 2 more seasons past X-Men. Yeah, so that whole show is done. So yes, he could get Jean Grey, because she doesn't die in that show, famously. I mean, like, they do the whole Dark Phoenix thing, and then for, like, half a season, you just don't see her. But they talk about her before that, like, she's supposed to be around. I guess she's just sleeping that entire time. And then, oh, there she is. Now we're using her again. So yeah, he could have brought her. Bring Professor X. Bring anybody. Like... I mean, I guess Storm's powerful enough, certainly. Jason had an interesting question. He was like, how does Spider-Man know that Storm's powers will work on this planet?
Yeah, for sure.
How do you know for sure that it's not just Earth-based?
Mm-hmm. And I noticed John Kelling said in the chat that Iron Man would have made more sense if they had picked an Iron Man villain. Yeah, they could have thrown like the Mandarin in there or something.
Oh, good call. Yeah, where the choices are based less on like arbitrary powers and stuff. I don't even know what his choices are based on exactly. He's just like, I'm thinking of these guys in my head right now. I've interacted with these people before, but it'd be better if it was based on their knowledge. Like,
well, and it's weird, right? Because he never had a Fantastic Four tie-in. Like, obviously, Spider-Man and Fantastic Four have like a connection from the comics, but he never interacts with them in this show.
That's not true.
Is there? I don't remember an FF crossover.
Maybe there's. You know what? Now that you say that, I think I'm thinking of a couple of instances where he
mentions them.
Okay, so what I'm thinking of is when he gets his 6 arms and he goes to Professor X. That's not Mr. Fantastic, that's Professor X. And then I think the other thing I'm thinking of is Doc Connors. And it's weird because you have Connors and Mr. Fantastic here.
Mm-hmm.
Who, I mean, he didn't pick Connors, but it becomes sort of redundant where, like once he's able to start using Connors, he just does all the stuff that you would expect that Mr. Fantastic would be doing.
So, Cap, how do you like this new Dune movie?
It's really not what I expected. You know, I was kind of surprised that they put... I mean, Spider-Man's got to be in everything now. It's like Sony is just so desperate for Spider-Man to be successful. They're making deals with everybody now.
Well, yeah, and people were like, okay, Dune, like maybe that's like a hard thing to translate. How do we make it like good for the normies out there? Put Marvel characters in there.
That's how we'll do it. I can't remember if Marvel ever made a Dune comic. I feel like in the 80s maybe there was one, but I can't remember.
Yeah, not that I know of, but they had a ton of stuff like that, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
They had Transformers, they had a ton of stuff. And they had Spider-Man in Transformers.
And they had Conan. Dan's been talking to me a lot about that. They had Conan for a long time and have him again.
Yep. No, they've been getting a lot of their old properties back. I'm not sure what the belts on the FF costumes are about. Like, what do they have in those pouches?
Well, they're just to hold their pants up.
But why do they have to have holsters? Like, what's in those?
Laser guns normally, but Spider-Man caught them on an off day.
Yeah, I also thought it was a weird choice in this new iteration of Dune to just flat out show us the sandworms right away. There's no build up to that at all. Just right in your face.
Yeah, just like 6 of them pounding on a building for a few minutes. It's very weird.
I don't know why they went to a sandworm place. I don't remember if they had sandworms in comic Secret Wars. I'm pretty sure they didn't.
Well, and that's the other thing is that in the comics Secret Wars, Battle World is made up of different planets.
Yes.
It's so that they're kind of not going into an area that one team knows more than the other.
And here, Beyonder's just like, let's just screw up somebody's planet.
And nobody likes these blue people anyways. Oh, yeah. Romello Malone, if I pronounced that right. Spider-Man should have picked the Hulk. Absolutely.
Yeah. And they could have, because he also had a show in this continuity.
Mm-hmm. Hulk, Doctor Strange, Cap.
So you had a Hulk show, you had a Fantastic Four show. I think you might have had a couple of Fantastic Four shows, or was only one of those in this world? Maybe that's what it was.
Well, I know the Fantastic Four, it's got like an Iron Man thing where like everything changes in the second season and it looks completely different. I don't know if there was more FF shows than that. I also don't know if that Avengers show counts in this continuity.
Say that again?
I said I also don't know if that Avengers show counts in this continuity.
It doesn't, as far as I understand it.
Oh, okay.
And that show was bizarre.
I've seen the first episode.
I've only seen the pilot. It's weird. That was that thing that really looked like it was made just to sell action figures. They had that weird armor, like it was the most '90s looking thing ever.
It's not a good aesthetic.
Everybody's just wearing plastic.
Well, and Iron Man is kind of an Avengers-y show because he's got like a lot of those characters in it. Like I know Hawkeye's a major character. I can't remember if Black Widow is, but he's got like a whole team.
So yeah, Spider-Man hadn't interacted with the Fantastic Four, like you said, and he hadn't interacted with Captain America either. And the only precedent for Captain America actually interacting with anybody in present day was X-Men. And then
in the season, Spider-Man's with Captain America. It's during that right? It's during with the Wizard stuff.
I thought that was
Electro.
Just flashbacks with Black Canary's dad, or Black Canary with Black Cat's dad.
Both can't get it right. Yeah,
Black somebody. It's a lady.
Panther.
It's a lady superhero type character with black in the name.
Yeah, no, earlier in the season, because Captain America makes a big sacrifice where he tackles Red Skull into the thing that traps them again.
That's right. I forgot all about that.
It's a very strange few episodes, so...
It's cool they brought Black Cat back, though.
Yeah, and they, address, stuff with them and, Blade and whatnot, which is kind of cool that they tied that together.
Yeah, it would have been cooler if they'd brought them here. Because as soon as you see them at the beginning of the next episode, you're thinking, oh, we're going to bring more heroes in? Are they going to find a way to transport more of them? Now they just bookend that.
Yeah, it would have been cool if we got, every hero that appeared in the show. He brought back, Punisher and Blade, and yeah.
Yeah, and then he shows up in the intro and stuff. You kind of expect to see him one more time before the show's over, especially when you see Blade and Morbius. But it also... I like that bookend a lot because it gives you the sense, even if you don't get to follow everybody too much, that characters really are changing and evolving and potentially maturing in this show, and I really like that. That now Morbius and Blade have put aside their differences and they're working together and they're kind of friends, and it's kind of neat that they did that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't remember, but isn't the last time Morbius appears before that, he turns into a bat and he just lives in a cave somewhere?
No, that's a good point. It doesn't actually... I'm giving him what I can give him,
No, of course.
You can't give him a lot of continuity props for that, but...
I don't know, maybe there's another episode and I'm just misremembering it. But,
and it's been since
Daredevil, Blue Dragon 5.
Oh, that's true. It would have been cool to see him again, of course. Because he only gets that two-parter, if memory serves. I don't think he ever shows up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to keep asking you guys to press play when we get to the next episode. So just get your thing rigged up. And we'll wait for everybody for just a second here. So Chapter 2... Gauntlet of the Red Skull. Just making sure I'm watching the right episode. Evan Rocks, I would have thought of Silver Surfer as well. Cosmic Awareness would have been useful, maybe.
Would he maybe not know about Silver Surfer? I don't know. I don't know how that falls into the continuity.
Well, and that show is after this, so they don't know if they're using Silver Surfer or not.
Well, and I don't know if I'm sure he shows up in FF, but I don't know.
He must, right? But I never watched through that whole show, so I don't know for sure.
Well, he's got to be in the Galactus one, because the Galactus episode's the only thing I know anything about, because that's where Ghost Rider shows up for 5 seconds out of nowhere. He should have done that here. He should have just showed up.
You'd have just this Deus Ex Machina at the end.
Yeah, he penance stares Dr. Doom Beyonder and then leaves.
As much of... Let's go ahead and press play, and then I'll make the point I'm about to make. Everybody, please press play. Make sure you're watching the second chapter of Secret Wars. It's episode 10 of Season 5, and if you need a timestamp, let us know. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. As epic for this show of an event as this feels, it's still not as big as it could have been. Certainly. I mean, I think that's kind of what we're getting at when we're where's Silver Surfer, where's some of these other characters. it feels weirdly small.
It's weird because it is small Marvel-wise, but it also is kind of too big Spider-Man-wise for me. Like, this isn't like a Spider-Man-y thing.
That's fair, but it could have been
A lot worse.
it could have been kind of the CW sort of thing where you well, I mean, I shouldn't say that because those shows would very often do their big events like between series. We'd have one episode here and one episode here, but you could have just picked a show and said, we're gonna do a big crossover event with all these shows, but we're gonna do it in Spider-Man because that's just the show we're doing it in, and because it's gonna be a Spider-Man focused, story. I guess you could have done that. It just feels like it's kind of trying to eat it, to have its cake and eat it too, with the idea of the real reason that we're putting all these characters together is just so that we can test Peter Parker as a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's a weird thing to pseudo-adapt. Maybe it should have just totally been its own story.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then
trying to get the name Secret Wars in there is always really awkward. Like when we get to Jason rolled his eyes so hard. You get to the end of we talked over it. The end of that first episode, and he's writing in his log, and he's like, "I'm making notes so that people can read this later, and it won't be a secret war." And then later on, he just keeps referring to it as the Secret War after he just said, "I don't want it to be a secret war." Now it's just what it's called. It's just the Secret War.
Gosh darn it, Spider-Man, it's called the Secret Wars, not the Secret War. Get your branding right.
It really is just the one. I mean, I guess you have some different, wars between the villains, but we're not following those. Like,
Blue Dragon 5 Secret Wars is the only story that needs the Russos to return. I don't know, I would like them to kind of do something small. Just like more like one character focused.
I agree with that. I mean, this is of course going to be an agree to disagree situation with a lot of people. However you feel about Infinity War and Endgame, but I think they're better at more smaller grounded stories. Up to and including something like Civil War, which yes is a bigger story with a whole lot of characters. Like, they could do a really good Avengers movie, but I'd rather not see them tackle cosmic stuff again. I just don't think that that's where they shine.
Well, in Civil War has one of the smallest climaxes in the MCU.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, they know how to juggle a lot of characters.
That's the big thing, is that they're better at juggling every character than pretty much everyone at Marvel but Gunn.
If we ever do Secret Wars in the MCU, I would much prefer, and I'm sure not everybody's going to agree with this, I would much prefer not to go back to this material, because again, there's not a lot here, right? It's aliens show up and go, let's have a big battle between good and evil. Like, that's it. And that's been done to death in so much sci-fi stuff everywhere. Star Trek's done it, everything's done it. I would much prefer seeing the modern Secret Wars, and that's how we eventually get away from multiverse. Like, I would love that if we have like a big, epic event where you do the newer Secret Wars Battle World, where it's a bunch of different universes that are all sandwiched together on one planet. And we do either a miniseries or a big Avengers movie, and then after that, there's no more multiverse. I would love that.
And I think that's what they're setting up. I just want the Secret Wars. I don't care about any multiverse stuff.
Okay, but I'm saying that for two reasons. Because I just don't care about this material being adapted.
Well, and
there's not really a story here. I don't know.
I agree, but I have always thought you could take this material and do a Civil War with it, where you take this and you make it good, because there's so nothing here. And I just don't care about any of the new Secret Wars stuff.
I know, but that's part of the reason I'm saying this. So first of all, yes, I I really like that event, and it's a great Doctor Doom story, and there's some really cool stuff that you could do with Doom when we finally introduce him, assuming that I end up liking their version of him. But, because we don't have that yet. But the other thing, like, don't discount the fact that there's great Doom stuff in that book, if you've not, I mean, maybe you haven't read it, like...
well, and you can definitely take elements from it. I assume they'll take elements from
Doom being the leader of, or being the god of the world is awesome, but the other thing is, it's a built-in way to finally, or to eventually get away from multiverse, and I don't want to be there forever. And that's why I'm suggesting that I would want to see Secret Wars used to get away from it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when you say you don't care about multiverse, that's my point. Is that's how you get out of it. That's how
Yeah.
we leave it.
But I don't even want that. Like, I just don't do any of this. Stop.
Yeah, but we're
obviously,
stuck with
you
it.
know,
We're there now. They made an entire
of course.
miniseries about it. Like,
No, of course. It's just I don't like that we're here.
so does Black Cat just have this like quota for sexy poses she has to do? She's on this like
What's
really
the only way?
uncomfortable,
No,
cold, like metal bench. She's just like, well, I'm here and I'm attractive, so I better do the sexy pose.
well, it's like, you know, when you're animating, you have like the specific character poses that you just have like on standby for the animators to reference. That's just theirs for her.
One thing that is awkward about bringing Black Cat in here is that all Spider-Man wants right now is to find his lost girlfriend, and this is immediately after he thought he had her, and she turned out to be a Hydro clone. And then Black Cat shows up, and he's all confused about his feelings and stuff, and we don't have time to really get into it. So there's this like kind of half-assed for 3 seconds love triangle thing where she and Captain America are kind of are it's weird and
It's very weird.
I don't want to say creepy, but it's just off. Where they're talking and he's like kind of half jealous. He's like, "What am I even feeling right now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe there's a good argument for not bringing her in."
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and if you can bring one last person, why would you pick Black Cat?
Well, in the excuse, because I forgot momentarily a little bit ago when I said that it looked like we were going to bring in more characters and then we didn't. Okay, we brought her in. That was it. And his excuse is, well, we work well together. You know how I think. And I'm like, it's been a while since I've been through the show, but I think if you go back and you look at their adventures together, that's not always the case.
Yeah, no, they definitely got some issues.
Like, she's going to be a distraction if nothing else.
And here we're going to prove why Iron Man's a liability.
Yeah.
At least a minute.
I mean, in Spider-Man's defense, he doesn't know that that's Tony Stark, because everybody remember that in this version, he's still not outed his secret identity. So nobody knows about the fact that the suit is keeping him alive.
And that's from kind of from the original Secret Wars, because it's not Tony, it's Rhodey. There's a whole thing in that about how he's a different Iron Man and they don't know who he is.
John says, interesting, Beyonder didn't choose the Mandarin or Magneto.
The villain choices are strange too.
Yeah, why Smythe? Smythe is a henchman in this show.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Smythe is here so they can have yet another giant robot to blow up, and that's the only reason he's here.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
for sure.
It's also weird to have, because their Doc Ock, and only their Doc Ock, is German in this show. And it's really weird to have him and Red Skull talking to each other. Because they're both German?
Well, and admittedly, I know Doc Ock isn't German outside of this, but this is my voice that I hear for Doc Ock
I've
when I
always
read
liked
comics.
that choice, don't get me wrong, but it's just funny that I don't think anything else has ever done that.
He does come back for the PS1 game. It is this actor.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
yeah, it's awesome.
But it's funny because immediately when they show up in the scene together, I'm thinking, oh, they're going to have a big team up where they're going to go up against everybody just because they're both German and they have that in common. Like, maybe we'll find out Doc Ock was, like, you know, secretly a closet Nazi, sort of. And then, immediately both of them walk off to somebody else and are like, yeah, I'm going to double-cross that guy the first chance I get.
They should have done the hero thing and built a portal to bring in Red Skull's son, Electro.
About that.
Iron Man got hit by a tiny rock and now he's basically dead. One of my favorite Marvel characters.
Like
sucks in the show.
When he got paralyzed because he got hit in the back with a barrel.
How embarrassing.
It was very embarrassing. It was embarrassing. This is that scene. And now we got
that's how I talk to people too, where they're like, "Oh, how did you do this?" And I'm like, "Oddly enough, it's your fault.
It's all on you, and that's all you need to know." Once again, always padding the show out with flashbacks. Well, that was extra creepy.
That guy just did a weird back close up. Don't you know that I'm bad guy?
I had that exact thought, and Red Skull just did one too.
Yeah.
Busted Sim Cap, that's just them both being efficient. Yeah, fair enough. Did you see the thing that her father did with his hands? He was like,
no.
I am very distracted by her dad's tie.
Really tie the show together.
But yeah, I think the idea of Black Cat being a super soldier was totally retroactive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That came out of nowhere. I remember thinking, like, I didn't even...
Now that I'm trying to think about it, it has been a while since I've seen the episodes that have her origin, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But
I thought that origin wasn't given to us until like 4 or 5, and before, when we had seen her, she seemed to just like vaguely be able to do like standard superhero stuff. I never thought she was superpowered. She doesn't have the bad luck powers that she does in the comics or anything like that. Like it seemed like she was just a Catwoman type, and then all of a sudden, oh, she's got super strength. Did we even ever see her? And again, I'm rusty. It's been a long time, so maybe I'm not remembering some things, but.
Iron Man, you suck. First of all,
did she ever show off the strength? I don't know.
I don't remember, but
Blue Dragon 5 says she was a super soldier from her creation in the show. I don't remember that. Okay.
Yeah, I think I remember like that part of. I don't know if they tie it to Captain America, but I remember
was that them
her
just
getting
going bad luck powers, or like Simper thinking that's too dumb for my show? I take it way too seriously.
But Iron Man, so like your suit's not working, and you have to pick up either Cap or the Lizard, so you pick the heavier one. This is why I hate you.
So I think if I'm being honest, and this is purely for nostalgic reasons, but this is my favorite Iron Man costume, just because it's the one I grew up with.
It is a good one, yeah.
I don't know what all the weird, like, padding things are on, like, his knees and his shins and stuff, but I've always liked that.
Well, it's just to make sure he's safe.
Oh.
Because this Iron Man will hurt himself if he's not.
He had him in the comics, too, though. Was he that accident-prone in the books?
No, Iron Man's actually cool. Here he's a complete chump.
If you're wearing a metal suit, why do you need elbow pads? Like, I'm expecting him. I'm making fun of this now. I've always liked the look of it, but if you start thinking about it, it's like you half expect him to wear a bike helmet on top of his helmet.
That would be awesome. He should just always be wearing the Hulkbuster, because clearly he needs it.
John just yelled 10 hours? Yeah, I had that same thought where they're like, look, we just the aliens like we can't give you too much time, but we'll stave it off for a little bit. Okay, can you give us a day? 10 hours.
10 hours. See all those stupid voices?
Yes, they're dumb. These robots look way too close to Terminator. Like, almost to a you could get sued kind of place.
It is Fox.
Okay, fair enough. That's true.
Well, it's like a weird mix of Terminator and Sentinels.
Yeah. And I guess a little bit of Brainiac in the face.
Mm-hmm. He should have had just giant spider robots. That would have been awesome.
Oh, that's right.
I like how he's converted some of these aliens into Nazis. That's kind of funny. He's got like SS aliens standing behind him.
Vince Burns in the comments, and welcome, I don't recognize that name, says she was a rich party girl with no fighting experience who got powers because Kingpin gave her the super soldier serum as a test subject. It's all coming back to me now. I forgot about that. But I guess I wasn't associating it as much with Captain America because, yeah, like they call it the super soldier serum, but all that stuff with her dad and everything we don't get until later.
Mm-hmm. Blue Dragon 5, I do like the Endgame homage, the classic Iron Man armor, but I don't like the design of their nanobot Iron Man. But I like that they gave him the colors of it.
What is Smythe doing right now? He's just bouncing around in the background. You see that? He's like half dancing at that console.
Yeah, because he's trying to shake around his little pincher things.
I legitimately
laser
love
shoulders.
that line when Spider-Man says "gentleman," and I use the term loosely. That's great. John says the blue Aryan rays. That's a thing I've seen actually in quite a bit of sci-fi stuff, where you'll have aliens who become Nazis, just completely contradicting the whole genetic superiority thing. You're like, you're not even anything like the same species.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that there's social commentary here with it, but that can sometimes be commentary, I think, on the fact that the Germans were like teaming up with the Japanese and stuff, where it's like, you know, they're also not blue-eyed, white skin. You know, you're claiming that you're genetically superior to everybody else on the planet, but you're working with people who look nothing like you and who you're claiming you're better than. So what's that about? And of course, some of you have you know Jewish or other blood in you while you're pretending like you're pure blood or whatever. So I was kind of liked that idea to just really exaggerate it and go all the way to having like a barely humanoid alien wearing an SS costume. We do that in Enterprise. There's an episode. There's an Enterprise episode that does it.
My pitch for a B movie has that in it too.
And Busted Sim just brought up Patterns of Force. Yeah, but Patterns of Force in TOS, they were all like actually human looking. And Voyager kind of does it too with the Herosian, but they're pretending like it's on the holodeck, and everybody sees the Herosian still as humans, so it's not the same thing. But anyway, I'm running off into Star Trek plays.
It's kind of lame that we bring 4 villains over and just 3 of them work together.
Well, it kind of feels like this episode is here just to get rid of the other villains so that it can become a Fantastic Four episode.
Dr. Doom thing, yeah.
Because Spider-Man really gets lost after this, because then it just turns into, the Thing versus Reed. And anybody watching this show that didn't know anything about the Fantastic Four would probably feel kind of lost or disinterested.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was kind of me as a kid, where it was like, I don't care enough about the FF.
And I think that's why I'm saying that in some ways it feels like it should be bigger. Because, like, the have your cake and eat it too thing, it's like, okay, is this just a, fun way to bring in some Marvel stuff, some more Marvel stuff we haven't dealt with, or to revisit some things while Spider-Man, really is going through, kind of an important arc? Or does it really want to be a big crossover for these shows? Because it kind of by the third one, feels like it really wants to be that when it becomes an FF show.
Well, and
That
Secret
castle
Wars
looks
should be
awesome.
adapted in FF in general. I mean, Mr. Fantastic is kind of the most important hero in that book, and
That
Doctor Doom
show
is the
might
most
also
important
be
villain.
over by now. Maybe it's that problem of
It
this
could
is
be.
the only thing you have on now, so you have to do it here.
Yeah, no, of course.
John, no punching in Spider-Man, but Doc Ock borderline groping Black Cat is fine.
I noticed that too. I wasn't gonna say anything, but it was like Ghostbusters level of uncomfortability. We were like, I see that.
Uncomfortability. It's a word now. We're going
It
with
is absolutely a word.
it. We're going with it.
It's a word in Canada. It's Canadian English.
I didn't have this thought until just now, but the end of that feels almost like it wants to be a backdoor pilot for a Blade and Morbius show.
I wish that happened. The Blade and Morbius show. That sounds awesome.
I also think...
Stupid, like, jagged green lightsaber.
You know what? We'll go ahead and press play again before I start talking more about the show. So Chapter 3, Doom! It's a great episode title, right? Because like that's what you're trying to prevent, and your main character and your main bad guy is Doctor Doom, and then the big cliffhanger is we're moving into a 2-part finale that's the end of everything. That's a good choice.
Well, it also makes sense because you bookend your Secret Wars thing with Dune and Doom.
Yeah, I didn't think of that either. It's all layered. You know,
John Semper is a genius.
He really is, man. It's like pie. I mean, it's layered. Okay, here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. So I think it's a big misstep. Well, first of all, it's hilarious that the recap here brings in characters that do not matter for the story. Like right away, it's like you need to know that Blade and Morbius are here, and I think the Vampire Queen is voiced by Nichelle Nichols.
Oh, interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nothing but Star Trek on the marathon tonight. But anyway, it's a misstep to not bring over Morbius and Blade to this actual planet, because when we get to Doctor Doom, we're going to find out that his accent is just Dracula.
I remember as a kid, seeing that, because obviously as a kid you don't understand like production and stuff, so I didn't know that the show was done and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I was always like, I want to see more with like this Blade stuff, like with what's going on with his mom.
Yeah.
I want to see a resolution to that. But you never get it.
Well, it feels like it could have been a cool episode. So this is that intro.
Oh, weird. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever seen this intro before.
And then next episode they're going to go back to the season 2 or whatever intro. And the first 2 parts didn't have this, but this is the only one that will of these episodes.
Yeah, I've never seen this intro before. That's really weird.
And it's shorter.
Mm-hmm. Weird.
I wonder if maybe they just cut that because they had like a tiny bit more footage they needed to get in or something.
Maybe,
or
I don't know.
Is it Disney Plus just not using the right intro? Like, I'm really not sure. Because that happens a lot with streaming services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I've never seen that before, so I don't know.
It's a cool intro, though.
Yeah, no, it was pretty good.
It's just fun seeing some of those characters.
A lot of these Marvel heroes showed up in the show, but not here.
Yup.
Oh my god, it's the Legion of Doom headquarters.
On Bug Legs. I guess that also was on Bug Legs, but much bigger Bug Legs. And yeah, I realize, guys, that Doctor Doom is from a fictitious country called Latveria, but like it's a weird accent because he just sounds Transylvanian. Like, I don't know what a Latvian accent should sound like, but I wouldn't just do another fictitious accent.
Mm-hmm.
It should just
Have
be
I told
vaguely
you
European,
my
right?
MCU Latveria thing that they now can't use thanks to Winter Soldier or Falcon and Winter Soldier?
I
Have
don't know
ever
what you're talking
heard
about.
Oh, have I ever told you about my MCU Latveria thing? Idea.
No, but what are you talking about with Falcon Winter Soldier? Is there a mention of Latveria?
No. So my thing with Latveria is that they should have just made Sokovia Latveria, and after like Age of Ultron, after like they were like attacked and whatnot,
they changed the name.
They fell into poverty, and then Doom kind of took over and made it into his own thing.
That would be perfect, yeah.
That would be so cool. And then Falcon and Winter Soldier's like, oh, Sokovia doesn't exist anymore. It was taken up by like 6 different countries around it. It's like, okay, I guess they can't do my idea.
Maybe one of them is Latveria. It's just very small.
It's a little piece of it. Because Sokovia feels like it's supposed to be Latveria, right? Like
I never had that thought, but sure. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it always to me felt like, we don't own Latveria, but we want to use it.
Okay, so I'm incapable of taking...
That was just Star Wars.
I'm incapable of taking their Mr. Fantastic seriously because he's voiced by the same guy who did Deflator Mouse in The Tick, and he's not doing anything different with his voice at all. It's just Deflator Mouse as Mr. Fantastic, and I've never been able to deal with it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's great. Where's the wind coming from, Dr. Doom? You're inside, but your cape is waving like there's wind.
It's one of his powers.
He has weird powers.
He's got yellow eyes. That's... Maybe
and
get
then
that
we're going to get to this really awkward thing. And I get that retroactively we'll learn that the Beyonder let him do this and sort of did it on purpose, but just the idea that you would even think to do this. So he's going to show up to the Beyonder and, like, reverse possess him. So he, like, brings the Beyonder inside himself, uses his powers, and then can just, like, keep him recessed inside of him, as opposed to the Beyonder possessing him. It's very strange. And it's like, how would you even know you could do that? Yeah, he's also Leonardo. Thanks, Stephen Murphy. That is true.
Flashbacks. Do you think we need the... I mean, I guess it's a Spider-Man show, so they probably do have to do the FF origin, but...
I don't think they do. The only thing you really need background for this
is just the thing.
Their relationship with Dr. Doom.
Thing. Yeah.
And that doesn't...
The Reed and Ben thing.
Okay, I guess that's all you need, yeah. You know what, that's fair. And they didn't spend too long on it.
Yeah.
Because there's not really any more to it than that.
Why would you make 2 hours out of that?
As evidenced by 2 movies that tried to stretch that to 2 hours and failed?
That's what the 2015 movie needed. The alternate world should have been this. Just like a bunch of blue people that have been taken over by Dr. Doom.
Anything would have been more interesting than nothing. Stephen Murphy, people are dying. No time for flashbacks.
Spider-Man, even though we've been hanging out for the last week, let us explain our origin to you after our friend was just kidnapped.
I had that thought the other day watching a Power Rangers episode. Jason was showing me the first episode of Jungle Fury, which is pretty cool for Power Rangers. But the Rangers get their powers and they morph once, and then there's a monster that grows the first time, and they're not able to use their Zords yet. So while this monster is, I'm assuming, rampaging and, like, stomping around and murdering people, they just go back to their lair and train for a while? With no sense of urgency. They don't seem to be worried about that monster that they watched grow and then left. Blue Dragon 5, I thought it was an interesting idea to have Ben won over by Doom here. I like that a lot, too. It just seems like a thing that should have happened in their show.
In the 60s cartoon, they do this kind of plot with Dr. Doom and the Thing, but instead of him making him human, he just has like a human face on the Thing, and it's so weird.
Thanks, Dr. Doom. I can do Skype calls now from the neck up, and nobody will know that I have a rock monster body.
Well, it's like he's still like rocky and stuff. Like it's not like he has human skin, but he doesn't have like the protruding like eyebrows and stuff. It is just kind of like solid human-y face on top of him. It's very, very bizarre.
Blue Dragon 5, did anyone else subtitles misspell Von Doom? I mean, if you're watching Disney Plus, we're all going to have the same subtitles. And
when I don't watch with subtitles,
I've been noticing so many just incorrect, terrible subtitles and things lately with every streaming service, and I kind of want to make videos on it because they get really funny. Busted said most shows follow the show don't tell rule. Spider-Man TAS uses the show and tell rule. I love the vanity thing.
I've never thought Dracula watching this, but now I can't
just has a mirror for him. And then he's like, I'm as pleasing to look at. I'm like, you're actually kind of creepy looking. Like, now that I don't have scars, I look great. Nah, you're creepy, dude. It's the eyebrows.
I don't know, something about people putting the Human Torch out is just always funny to me. I don't know what it is. It's just an amusing image. In the 60s show, they take his like Stan Lee weakness, which is asbestos. So like there's
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, there's like one episode where a monkey walks up behind him and just puts an asbestos bag over him, and it like takes out his flame.
That's amazing. That'd be a fun gag to do, right? Where every time the Human Torch shows up, like the fire department arrives, starts spraying water at him.
Yeah, exactly. I want the MCU to have, you know, like the Human Torch catching people out of the air and stuff, but he's just on fire and they never address it.
I think it's also kind of surprising that we only did 3 episodes of this.
Mm-hmm,
this easily could have been half the season. Or all of the season.
Especially when they made almost an entire season out of Morbius.
Yeah, and that was pretty stretched.
He's not the main villain of all of them, but he's like at least a bit player through most of that.
And they have some sort of interlude episodes, if memory serves.
Yeah,
but
they do.
Yeah. It would have been really easy to do interlude episodes with this too, where you just keep having like different character focuses. You bring a lot more characters in. Like again, this feels like, not to be a broken record, but this feels like a Fantastic Four episode, not a Spider-Man episode. So like, it's sort of a 3-part story, and in some ways, it's sort of more like 3 different stories with this premise, just bookending the Beyonders plan. You could have easily done that with 6 or 8 or whatever, and I think the perfect model for that, this is a weird example, but go back to the second and last season of Superhero Squad, and they do that with Infinity Gauntlet, where they sort of adapt Infinity Gauntlet, but they have a lot of individual like character-focused like different character-focused shows jumping around different parts of the Marvel Universe. Including a Monsters one where they do like you know, the Man-Thing and Werewolf by Night and those kinds of characters. They have like one episode that's all of that.
Yeah, and to your point about this being an FF episode, it's interesting because the last episode wasn't really a Captain America episode, and that's like the big Red Skull one.
Yeah. No, it still felt like a Spider-Man episode.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they just felt like there wasn't really a way to do this story without it just turning into a Fantastic Four thing. But like Spider-Man's just disappeared, really.
I also think it's really funny in this that in the Secret Wars comics there's the whole thing where Doctor Doom's like, oh, I have to turn my powers off before I go to sleep because if I don't, like, I'll create things while I'm dreaming. And then in this show, I guess he didn't think of that. So that's his weakness.
And I also like that he's like, this is impossible by definition because I can control everything. And like, that's the rules, you see.
Deal with the rest of them.
So when we got to the end of this, my son Jason's big question was, how exactly does this prove that Peter Parker is such a great leader? He didn't think that Spider-Man actually had to do enough by the end of this.
Well, you see, they won in the end.
Oh.
I think it's just supposed to be because he talks Doom down, but
yeah.
Being able to talk somebody down and be a leader aren't necessarily the same thing.
Well, and they make Doom yet another, anti-responsibility villain, which works. Like, Doom always works as anybody's villain.
Mm-hmm. He absolutely does.
Liked about that character, and it was in the Stan Lee era. It was kind of an obligatory thing where your book made it when Doom shows up, and it would have been cool if we'd done like a Spider-Man Doom story where the Fantastic Four didn't have to be featured as heavily as they do here, because they wouldn't have to.
Especially because what I like about Spider-Man and Doctor Doom isn't captured at all here, which is how kind of outclassed Spider-Man is by Doctor Doom. Like, Doctor Doom is way above him. Like, you go back to that early issue of Stan Lee, and
he's only just in, like, ability and
and he's only fighting
intellectual
bots, and he's like on his toes the entire time, struggling to even make it through. And he's not even really fighting Doctor Doom. It's just his Doom bots.
That's a really good point from Busted Sim. He says, I think it's just that Madam Web and the Beyonder put all the other Spider-Men through this, and they did worse. I wish they would make it a little bit clearer that the other Spider-Men had to do the same trial exactly. Because it seems like that's what it has to be, but I wasn't 100% sure.
This is a part where it's weird they didn't pick Hulk, because this is the big Hulk moment from the book.
Okay. See,
which we kind of adapt in Endgame, which is a little strange.
I don't remember. I guess I need to reread that, but it's not sticking with me for whatever reason. I had that with...
That's just a big Hulk image in general, is Hulk holding up the mountain.
I had that with Crisis, too, where like I've read that book 2 or 3 times and reviewed it in detail. I never remember anything about that book.
Yeah, that's like a whole issue, is them under the mountain. Here they get out in 5 seconds. I mean, like, they don't even explain how they survived.
Which is goofy, but I mean, at least it wasn't just the premise. They actually pulled, some images and ideas and stuff, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they kind of do that imagery with Endgame when they blow up the Avengers facility and you have Hulk, like, holding it up. But it's...
Batman Rocks, there's a neat social status contrast between Spider-Man and Doom as well that you can play with. And the age thing, of course, is always
absolutely
a big deal with Spider-Man and a lot of villains, where it's like, he's learned this profound responsibility thing that with whatever kind of ability you have, whether you're really powerful or not, you still have to be careful with it. And then he'll fight these, like, middle-aged or elderly men that haven't figured that out yet, and he's got it at 16 years old or whatever.
Yeah. No, Doctor Doom kind of fits thematically with most big Marvel characters as a main villain. That's why he's the best.
Well, and that's why I loved the choice, again, in the modern Secret Wars, to make him the god of reality when you merged all of the different Marvel universes together. Because he's kind of like he's like the Marvel villain before he's anybody's villain specifically, even though he's also, very clearly the foil for Reed Richards. Like he's just always worked really well for that. I don't know that DC has anybody like that. I mean, which is appropriate, because that was a bunch of, different splintered ideas that you threw all together.
Yeah, they don't really.
I guess you can put Lex in anybody's story pretty easily. I always like it when he shows up in Batman stuff.
Yeah, he works well with Batman. I don't think he's as versatile as, like, Doom with other DC characters, but with Batman, right. Definitely.
Yeah, it's not as ubiquitous. I'm just trying to think if they have it.
No, of course.
I guess we've tried to make Darkseid that, but then, like, Thanos, we also will put in any kind of Marvel story. But
Lex
it's usually
is probably most comparable to, like, someone like Kingpin, where you can kind of take Kingpin out and put him in specific Marvel things, but not most Marvel.
That's true. And the big difference between Doom and Kingpin and then somebody like Thanos is that's always got to be a big event kind of thing. Or something more cosmic and large. Like Doom might be really powerful depending on what power set he's got right now, because that seems to change for various reasons with magic and stuff. But or because he reverse possessed in Alien Entity. But it doesn't have to be necessarily event level.
Mm-hmm.
It's really convenient that the panels in the wall are exactly as tall as Spider-Man.
Well, with Doom, what I want from the MCU for an FF movie is the Secret Wars thing, where they do Doom and Molecule Man, where Doom's like, "Hey, your powers are like godly, like, and you can't even comprehend that. Like, work with me, and I will teach you things." And he like makes him like a whole other level of villain.
So it is always a mistake in this era to try to put even for 2 seconds on screen when they're doing their 3D animation for a minute to actually put characters in it. Mm-hmm. That's a mistake. Tom, $2 super chat. Green Arrow is the god of reality in DC. Remember? I mean, are you talking about that CW thing with their Crisis? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I assume so. He becomes Spectre.
Or what exactly that has to do with what we're talking about. But
there's also an earlier super chat I saw. From I think.
Oh, did we not actually hit that?
No.
You know what? I thought we answered.
I wasn't sure if you were going to cover it later, so that's why I didn't say anything.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. No, I forgot about it, and it's not showing up now.
It was something about.
Sorry about that. Feel free to leave it without a super chat, and we'll, if you're still here, and we'll read it.
It was about why people don't like Marvel armored superheroes. I think it was something to do with that.
Oh, okay. Is that a thing?
I'm assuming, yeah, because we do like a lot of like armored superhero costume stuff. And I'm not as big of a fan of that look, but I do think it depends on the character.
Are we talking about the '90s thing that we mentioned earlier, just with the kind of like action figure look?
Oh, maybe I just assumed in general, because that is something that happens a lot now too.
Yeah,
like throwing the Flash in armor is always weird to me. Like, that's one character that I don't think that works for.
But that's what I'm saying. I thought you said with Marvel characters in particular.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Are we doing that in Marvel?
Well, I'm trying to remember, like, what exactly the super chat was.
DC, we have that conversation all the time, where, like, it's weird. It's really weird. The weirdest thing in the world to me was New 52 has to put everybody in an armored suit, including Green Lantern. What?
That is weird.
That's weird. And also, why would they all look like they were designed by Jim Lee? Like, they all look like they're designed by the same person, even though they all come from totally different worlds and meet looking the same. Like, in his book, it's weird.
He says Armored Cap, Daredevil, Spider-Man. So, do you mean, like, the silver and black? Like that kind of, like, armor, or even with the MCU? We got, like, the Iron Spider stuff.
Oh, maybe that's
just like that, maybe?
Yeah.
I will say...
It makes more sense in MCU that everybody's got sort of kind of armor on them.
And I've always wished the Iron Spider-Man suit was the silver and black armor in the movies, but... Just because I don't like that armor, but...
Me too, but at least it's not orange. Because it really easily could have been.
Yeah,
because that was true. Really popular for about 6 seconds, and I don't know why, but Civil War had that on a cover, and it was huge. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I don't know, I've always liked the silver and black armor, not as like a main Spider-Man suit. I think of it more as like kind of how it's used here. Also, in the PS1 game, it's like a power-up that you get, and you have like an extra health bar. It's stuff like that where it's just like, oh, on this one kind of thing, he's going to put on this armor.
Okay, so we've got the finale, the 2-part finale of the show to watch now, and it's weird because this will be the second time I've done a commentary on this, but it's not available on the channel anymore. That was in the 24-hour stream, and I don't remember.
Oh, cool.
A couple of years ago, I did, for anybody that doesn't know, I did 24 straight hours of superhero television, and I let you guys pick everything. This was there. and I don't remember how late it was and how tired I was doing it, and I don't even remember who I did it with, but it was in there. I did it. So anyway, gonna do that again, and let's go ahead and take a break before we do that for just a couple of
Yeah,
minutes.
for sure. I am out of my root beer float, so I have no drink.
You gotta
so
have
that
more
works.
of that. Are you gonna have a second root beer float, or are you gonna get
No, I
something
have
else?
no more root beer.
He's got no more float, ladies and gentlemen.
I also started drinking it and realized that I didn't put enough ice cream in it, so the mix was wonky. It's the story of my life.
Well, I hope everybody's having a good time. Thanks for being here. If anybody pops in wondering why we're not on camera, just let them know that we'll be right back, and that the episode that you should be rigging up is Spider Wars Chapter 1, I Really, Really Hate Clones, which is essentially just Secret Wars Part 4, because, I mean, they're out of the Secret Wars thing, but it's just the next chapter of that story. They're directly linked. So anyway, we'll be right back in just a couple minutes.
After these messages, we'll be right back. What's up, everybody? I don't know if you guys can hear me or what's going on, if Cap turned that off, but let me know in the chat. I'll hang out with you guys until Cap comes back. That's right. We are currently on a break. If you guys can hear me. Okay, perfect. So how's everybody doing tonight? Oh, and I'm on Top Chat too, so I don't know if that'll delay. But on live chat. Man, it's been a while since I've watched this show, but it's always pretty sweet. Pretty crazy. Armored Carnage? I don't know. Armored Carnage sounds bizarre. Oh, I can hear myself.
Oh. I don't know why suddenly you'd be able to hear yourself.
Very, very strange.
Is it bad? Is it still bad?
I can hear it a little bit.
Okay, I'll turn you down a little bit. I heard you talking. I was like, oh my god, I better hurry up and get back here and salvage this.
I'm used to that, yeah. But it's always like a bad thing when I do that because I never know if I'm live or not. So it's just like, hey, am I live?
Well, I didn't shut the stream down. Why wouldn't you be live?
Well, I don't know. I think when we did the Snyder Watch Party, which is one of the first live things I did like that, we had a break. You like turned it to like a specific screen so they couldn't see.
Oh yes.
Anything.
Yeah,
so,
I left it on. And if you're not looking at the YouTube video right now, you wouldn't know because I don't have it set up to where you can see it. But I didn't change the scene at all. So.
Yeah, for all I know, you had like technical difficulties. We'll be back. Oh yeah, I guess there is an armored Venom with Agent Venom, isn't there?
That's a good point, but here's the thing. If the symbiote creates armor, that makes sense. If you put armor over a symbiote, what's that about?
It blocks out sound. Then you have no weakness.
Sure, but then why even have a symbiote? Because he's not going to be able to do anything through the armor.
Because it's the 90s.
Oh, and I'm not sure if that ever happened, but I'm just saying that, like, I actually don't think the armored symbiote, now that we're talking about it, I don't think the armored symbiote thing is that weird, because, like, if you can create, you know, whatever substance you want to as a symbiote to, like, protect yourself or make weapons or whatever, then you might as well. Like,
but
you
are
make
you
a
just,
shield,
like,
why not make armor?
Yeah, but are you, like, always as armored if you just have it? I don't know.
Well, that would be like saying...
So it would just be like the same material, right? I don't know how that works.
No, I think
if I
you
had the
can make it
symbiote,
harder.
I'd rather just be that guy from Aerosmith as opposed to being an armored guy.
But I think you could make it harder or softer because, I mean, this is a really silly example, but by the logic you're throwing at me, you're basically saying it's the same thing if you just take a tentacle and try to slash somebody versus making your arm into like a battle axe or something.
Well, you got like a point, I guess, like you make one on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Marvel, call me, explain this to me. I don't know how your universe works, and I don't like it. So
it's not any easier to be consistent about this than it is proximity or amount of kryptonite, right?
Yeah, it's just always going to be inconsistent.
It's the same problem. Like at some point, you're talking about a conceit. Like it's pseudoscience at best.
Even Spider-Man in general, like Spider-Man's strength is very inconsistent.
Blessed Sim's making some great points tonight. Superhero characters with armor are a way to sell toys that 90s boys felt comfortable dressing up with. Yeah. And not just dressing up with, or playing dress up with, and also playing with dolls, essentially. You know, you're still, I mean, action figures are really popular and boys are playing with them, but you're still in a period where kids that aren't playing with that kind of stuff might make fun of you for playing with dolls, where it's like, you know, your sister has Barbies and you're playing with things that look sort of like Barbies, so you get made fun of. Like, no, this is a boy thing because it's got this plastic that goes on top of other plastic that makes it masculine.
Well, when I was a kid, my mom used to make fun of me a lot because I used to have, from this show actually, a Spider-Man and a Green Goblin, like the ones that were like the size of Barbie dolls. And like I'd have those, and those were the only toys I had that were that size, and they were like my favorite things ever because they were big and like, you know, whatever. And then I found she had a bin of her Barbies in like the closet, so like they just became the citizens. So I would like take one of them and just like throw it off like a drawer, and then have Spider-Man like catch it in midair. My mom would be like, "Oh, look, he's playing with Barbies." It's like not really though.
I thought this was going to be a sad story, because if you started that, I thought you were going to stop at, they were the only toys I had.
Could have been, I don't know. One of her boyfriends did put one of my Spider-Man toys in the oven once. That was a whole thing.
I maybe mentioned this before. I almost had told this story. It's not a story. It's
more of a fact.
Yeah, it's more of a fact. It's more of a piece of information, if you will. The first geeky toys, like or superhero related toys I remember ever getting, I were well, okay. I had a Ninja Turtle. I had a Donatello Ninja Turtle. I think that was the first action figure I ever had, and that might have actually been the first superhero related toy. After that, it was Batman '89 like Micro Machine sized cars. It was like there was like a purple Joker van. Maybe they weren't quite Micro Machine size, but they're small. It was like a purple Joker van and a Batmobile and a Batwing. And I played with those like constantly before I had anything else. And it's just weird thinking back. There was a time where like that's the only stuff I had.
Yeah, I remember for me, I had all of my toys were like geeky related, but on my mom's side, I was an only child. On my dad's, I wasn't. So when I went to my dad's, since I was the oldest one, my younger siblings would have like little kid toys. Like I remember they had little people, which were like these little guys like that big.
Fisher
and they had,
Price,
yeah, and they had like little like village kind of playset stuff. And like it would be the same thing. I'd like bring a Spider-Man and whatever villain, maybe like a Venom, and Venom would just be throwing little people off the thing.
Spider-Man terrorizing the town.
Yeah, like that was because for me, playing with toys was just as much about making a story as it was playing.
Of course,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that too.
Mm-hmm.
But I never had generic characters in the background, and that's a great idea.
Yeah, just whatever character I could, like whatever kind of thing I could get, where it's like these are the people that kind of are the people that get in trouble that like Spider-Man has to save or whatever.
You're younger than me, but did you ever have, because I don't know what commercials you grew up with, did you ever have the thing where you'd get action figures and you'd be disappointed because you didn't have the resources to recreate the amazing playsets in the commercials that they didn't release? Where they'd have like all these extra, cool looking props and things. There'd be dry ice. They'd be like on what looked like essentially an action figure backlot, and you'd be like, why can't you release this stuff? Like, I'm stuck playing in the kitchen.
Well, and not just that, but for me a big one was, man, like those toys are pristine. Mine are all like beat up. Half of my Spider-Man didn't have heads. I remember I had an Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, and he had no hair, and he had like an indent on his head from where like the hairpiece was like plugged in. So he just had like a really deformed head. And I had like a Gandalf that was cut in half, and I'd have to like try to hold him together.
Yeah, it was kind of false advertising that you could play with toys the way kids sometimes would in those commercials, especially anything that was supposed to go in water, because you'd be like, well, yeah, that paint's gonna chip off pretty quickly, even if it's intended to go in water. But the big one for me was, and again, I'm an old person next to you, but like the '89 Batman figures notoriously had a bat symbol in the center that would rub off if you played with it for any amount of time at all. So if you watch those commercials, you'd be like, yeah, tomorrow those kids are not going to have Batman figures that still look like that. Like, that's going to start chipping away and eventually they disappear. If you find those at like yard sales or flea markets or whatever, you almost never now, unless it's in package, will find one that still has a bat symbol because they all rubbed off.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, let's get back to this, shall we?
Yeah, it was like a whole toy discussion.
Yeah, we can take that out and make it a GNN. So, we're going to watch now the last 2 episodes of the epic 5-part conclusion for 90s animated Spider-Man, and I'm calling this the Proto-Spider-Verse set of episodes. It really feels like that, and as soon as Dan Slott did his Spider-Verse, this was the first thing I thought of, where I was like, we actually kind of have done this before. Like, it's this big novelty of there's all these different Spider-Man from different alternate dimensions. Let's put them all together. And now somehow the Spider-Verse idea has become almost synonymous with Spider-Man, which feels so counterintuitive and backwards to me.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's really unfortunate.
This was a big novelty and a big, at the time, and a big, fun way to end this out. And I remember it being kind of a big deal when it was on, because this kind of thing had not really been done much. And like I said, when you get a chance, go back and watch Turtles Forever, because it kind of does this. except that was with two shows that had aired, like being merging them into a continuity with a
Which is
multiverse.
interesting.
Yeah. But it's a similar thing in that it's not a crossover for different characters in different universes, but the different versions of the same person. That's how they're related.
Did you ever play Shattered Dimensions?
I loved Shattered Dimensions. Yeah, it's
Because
great.
that obviously is not the show's versions, but they at least get the actors from different shows to come back and play different versions,
That's
which
true.
is really cool.
No, there was precedent. You're right. Even besides this, before we got to the Spider-Verse thing,
And that game was written by Slott too.
Yeah, and then the follow-up was written by
Peter David.
Peter David,
Edge of Time, yeah.
which I've never played. I think I have a copy of that, but I've never actually sat down and played it. And I want to go back to
Shattered
Spider-Verse.
Dimensions.
Or sorry, to Shattered Dimensions. Shattered Dimensions was a big deal for me because that was the thing that brought back 2099. That wasn't even back in comics yet. And that game, I think, really popularized at least that costume with people that weren't familiar with it. It was like, what is this? That is so cool looking. I mean, it's always been my favorite Spider-Man suit. And all of a sudden... And it was probably also people that just, like Batman Beyond and stuff, and didn't realize there was like a Spider-Man one, which came first. But yeah, so like that was a big deal. And so when they did the sequel and they didn't bring everybody back, it was like, you know what, we'll just do 2099 and 616 Peter Parker, and that's all we need.
And it's not even a universe thing in that game either. It's just a time thing because they exist in the same universe.
Yeah. I actually wasn't sure if that's how they did that, but...
It is because there are parts in that game where like you're playing as Peter and you're seeing like, Miguel's in trouble. And he's being killed by a robot, and you have to be Peter Parker and like destroy the like stuff that would later on go on to become that. It's like a Terminator thing. They do stuff like that.
Well, and it's fascinating to me. We'll get this started in a second, guys. It's fascinating to me that 2099 has become so kind of pivotal and important for current Spider-Man stuff because I didn't know if we'd ever see it again. And we've made it like the inevitable future that we'll get to, and Alchemex is just a normal thing in Spider-Man stories now, and like it's weird. I never thought we'd see that. However you feel about that, and however you feel about the way Slott dealt with it, because I mean, I have to give him credit where it's due. Like he's the reason 2099 came back and became a thing again, and that we got more Peter David 2099. I mean, I have to thank him for that because I love 2099.
Well, yeah, I mean, Slott, even for what he is, there's like little inklings of things where you can be like, yeah, I can at least appreciate that. Absolutely.
But anyway, let's go ahead and watch this, shall we? So make sure that you're watching the fourth episode in this sequence. It's episode 12 of season 5. It's chapter 1, I Really, Really Hate Clones, which is a fun title, and of course will be a line in the episode from Spider Carnage. Jason, whenever we were watching these, would always point out where the episode title is. He'd go, "Oh, that's the," and I don't know why, but he would always go to a Plinkett voice. He goes, "That's the episode title."
Oh, I thought he was just gonna be like, "I really, really hate clones."
No, he would just always go as if that's a thing that Plinkett would ever deal with in a review. He's just like, "That's the name of the episode."
That's in Picard. If they ever do that there, you can say that.
All right, here we go, folks. Get ready to press play when I say now, and I'm just about to do that. Everybody, please press play right now. Whoosh. So,
Speaking of 2099,
we're back to the earlier intro again. I don't know
how
why.
How is he not in this?
Say again?
It said, speaking of 2099, how is he not in this?
I think, you know what? It's actually fair that he's not here because all the Spider-Mans we get seem to be
just
from
different Peter Parker.
Present day, same time.
Oh, I see.
You could have easily said that there's another dimension where things are more futuristic, or it somehow is in the future already. But the only thing that feels like it's out of time is just the Six Arms thing, and it would be really easy to just say, well, he hadn't gotten to that yet. Like, it's the same time period, but somehow that happens later in his history. I don't know genetically why that would happen, because he gets the 6 arms and turns into the man spider because of the mutation thing, but the CGI is beautiful.
I mean, that black hole certainly did suck.
Yes, Steak Spear, I have seen the Spider-Verse 2 teaser and didn't get a chance to look at that before the live show last week, but I'll try to bring that up on Thursday, or hopefully somebody will ask about it if we don't get there. But
nice, yeah. That.
I mean, there's not much to say except yay 2099, and that's gonna be a big part of that. And I was expecting that it would be, but it's nice to have that confirmed. So.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it, but obviously I know 2099 would be in it. So I haven't seen the first movie either. Beyonder,
it's always
not
fun
cool
watching him emote in the mask. Sorry, what?
So Beyonder, it's not cool to speak to somebody in commercial break cliffhangers.
That's very rude, Beyonder.
Yeah.
So this was treated with a lot of love and care in the production. I always felt.
And, for sure.
I mean, it's kind of. I think it's kind of fan service done the right way. It kind of gives everybody at the end of the show a lot of their favorite things and what they really like about the show. And whether you feel like it was kind of tacked on or handled sort of superficially and easily or whatever, it also by the end is trying to stay to the core ideas and values of the character, with the Uncle Ben talking down the Spider Carnage thing. For this show, this is a pretty decent story, and I mean, I put it pretty high in my top 10 when I did the Superhero Rewind for this. It's always fun to go back to.
This was always a big deal for me as a kid, seeing Green Goblin and Hobgoblin together.
Yeah.
Specifically because every VHS tape I had the commercial for the VHS of the one where they like fight each other.
Yeah.
And I never got that as a kid. So
you didn't get to see
always,
it?
Yeah, so it was always like, I want to see that one. So this was kind of the only time I could see them interact.
I like that there's kind of the sense of mystery when Spider-Man gets here, where you would expect that he's in the future, and my son Jason actually did right away. He's like, it's like a post-apocalyptic future, and you don't know right away that you're in another universe.
Yeah, like this is just what's happened while he's been gone during Secret Wars.
Yeah, because we have.
That's what I had as a kid.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're supposed to have. And I don't think we've even really established the notion of different dimensions in this show yet. So you wouldn't necessarily think of that. I mean, that might sound kind of silly and quaint now, because comics are obviously, and now movies and stuff too, constantly going to multiverse and different realities. But we hadn't really established that as an idea. So you wouldn't necessarily go there. But it is really weird that we're going to go to he's a clone place before we even bring up that we're in another dimension, because they've been dealing with Clone Saga stuff in this universe. So it suggests to the audience for a minute that there's this whole weird clone thing happening, and then you find out that you're in another dimension and there are clones simultaneously. We're just going to throw it all at you at the same time.
This sounds like the plot to a bad comic book.
I love that he says that. It's nice that they're that self-aware about it.
Oh, for sure. Especially so close to when the Clone Saga happened. They could have easily, not had that self-awareness.
Yeah. They also could have easily just avoided it entirely because it was kind of hated.
No, that's a thing that every Spider-Man show apparently has to build to, and then they fail to get there.
And I mean, to be fair, it's a big part of Spider-Man lore. This always cracks me up, just cutting back and forth to Jameson being dropped by a Spider-Man that he thinks is a killer. And you just gotta wonder what he's thinking on his way down. Like, I really need to be screaming and yelling something, but nothing great is coming to me, so I'm just dropping.
Especially because he's just a still image, and it's like specifically like he's not even moving.
So awkward. So I forget his name, but you got to hand it to the guy who voices Spider-Man or Peter Parker in this.
Christopher Daniel Barnes.
Thank you. He has to voice so many different versions of Spider-Man in this. Like, most of the characters that you hear in these 2 episodes are voiced by this guy.
Yeah.
And he really commits to Spider-Carnage. Like, for a second, it's hard to tell it's even his voice. And yeah, it's modulated and stuff in post, but he's got to do like a high-pitched laugh and everything. It sounds great. He does a great job with it.
And his Spider-Man Noir in Shattered Dimensions is really good too. If you remember that.
Yeah, it is. No, he's a good actor. Mm-hmm. He also, like, Semper takes the show too seriously. Like, if you listen to him in interviews and stuff, he's got. I mean, I hate to say this because I like him. He's a little pretentious about the show, but.
Well, I think a lot of creative people have that, where they get into something and they're like, this is it. This is the thing. It's the bee's knees, man.
Yeah, and that's fine, but he talks about it like it's a little bit more intellectual and sophisticated than it is, and he sounds like a thespian. So does Madam Web
he's not the melodrama, right?
Does Madam Web have legs? It's just a question. Is she a spider mermaid?
I don't know. Maybe they'll address it in the new Sony movie.
Oh, because Madam Web's supposed to get her own movie. Wasn't that a thing?
Mm-hmm. Tom Holland mentioned wanting to do Madam Web the other day in an interview. He was talking about how he pitched Sony a Peter Parker movie that was low budget and didn't have like Spider-Man stuff in it.
So real quick, like I said, these Spider-Men all got action figures, or at least most of them did. And I mean, obviously, the actor guy is just wearing a Spider-Man costume, but everybody else. And I had the one with the octopus arms, and I had the metal one. And it was a big deal to get to see Ben Reilly, because even though the Clone Saga was hated, the beginning of that with Ben Reilly was really, really popular, and everybody loves that costume.
Mm-hmm. I think with the toys too, they even added Spider-Man. Like, they do that kind of thing with the toy line.
I think so.
And it's kind of cool.
Yeah, because I think there was like a cosmic Spider-Man that they threw in there in that line. I might be wrong, but.
I wouldn't be surprised because that skin is in the PS1 game.
Oh,
so,
okay. It was
and that game kind of feels like it could maybe or maybe not be in this. Maybe it's kind of got that thing where it's.
If you can't full on like adapt and do a whole Clone Saga story, it's smart that we start in Ben Reilly's universe. And we can at least kind of establish those ideas and everything. It's hurried, it's rushed, it has to be, but it's fun the way they handle it. I really like the way that they poke fun of just how convoluted that whole story was. Not just in him saying that it sounds like a bad comic plot, which is the line that's about to show up, but also because Ben Reilly's like, I still don't know whether I'm actually the real Peter Parker or not. It's great.
I also like that we finally get to see Gwen Stacy in the show here.
Yeah, I've always been of two minds about it. It's awkward,
oh, fair enough.
Right? Yeah,
because there's definitely a level of awkwardness, but I like that they actually put Gwen Stacy in this show.
Yeah,
but it is definitely
what
awkward.
I don't like about it is that because the Ben Reilly thing, they actually give all the background and they can kind of make him a character, and it's not for very long or anything. But I don't feel like a kid would be lost looking at that. Gwen Stacy is just a nod to people who know who that character is.
Yeah,
like,
that is fair.
Nothing there. It's just, oh, we never got her in the show. Tack her on at the end, and Gwen Stacy is being. Pursued by a Spider-Man from another universe. Like, okay.
That's fair.
A kid's going to be lost on that. Like, why is there this other love interest I've never heard of?
Well, I definitely had that to an extent. I also, as a kid, was completely lost on all of this because I didn't have any of this material in any of the VHS stuff I had.
Oh, sure.
So it was like, Mary Jane was Hydro Man?
Hydro MJ?
Yeah, what?
Which is hands down the weirdest thing they did in the show. or at least it's up there. But there it is. It's a bad comic book plot. So I really like that we bring back the holes from the SWAT episode, and that because that's one of, if not my favorite episodes of the show. And
For sure. They do quite a bit with that, yeah.
The dilation device, and we bring it back at the end here. We make it the way that Spider-Carnage can destroy the entire universe.
Well, yeah, because his plan is basically the end of the Spot episode. We have, like, the big portal in the sky.
Yeah. When Kingpin says that there's no profit in the destruction of the planet. Making Peter Parker the villain that destroys the whole multiverse is a real classic kind of Spider-Man idea. I really like that. Where it's like, the real ultimate Spider-Man villain would be the Peter Parker who not only doesn't get the responsibility lesson, but has the exact opposite of that and wants revenge on reality. It's a good idea. It also feels like Semper's gotta be, and I'm going back to Star Trek again, I apologize. Semper's gotta be looking at All Good Things, the last episode of TNG with this, because that is a whole time travel deal where Picard is supposed to be responsible for the destruction of everything somehow. And just a couple of years later, we do that here. And as the last episode of this show. Like, there's no way he's not looking at that.
That's funny.
I've never actually had that thought until just now, but it's All Good Things. Like, he's definitely looking at that. And, like, with All Good Things, Q is, at first looks like he's responsible for it, and then it turns out that he's helping Picard figure out what he's done in trying to help him reverse it. Here, Beyonder is in that role. Like, it's the same thing.
Sorry, Vince
no, you're
Burns. Do you think Iron Spider failed Secret Wars because Iron Man armor just sucks? Yes. He got hit by one rock and he died.
I also think it's really funny that you have kind of a generic comic book Iron Man in this show, and then when we do this Iron Spider guy, it's MCU Iron Man?
Mm-hmm.
Like, before MCU Iron Man? Like, it's Robert Downey's Iron Man, right? He's got the narcissistic, like, I can do no wrong, I'm perfect thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's really funny, because their Iron Man is not that, but their Spider-Man Iron Man is that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Spider-Carnage is also something now we could see in the MCU, because Tom Holland also said he wants to play evil Spider-Man in one of the next movies, so... Spider-Carnage.
I'm not immediately against something like that. I'd like to see if Holland could do evil.
I think he definitely could. All I'll say is go watch... He's not evil, but he's like a much darker character. Is go watch something like Devil All the Time.
Yeah, and I still haven't done that. And I've heard that he's got a lot of range, and I've just not seen the range yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in like smaller stuff he gets to, but in bigger things, they just want him to do his Spider-Man shtick, unfortunately.
Yeah, which is why he's terrible casting for Uncharted, and I'm kind of thinking about not seeing that just because it seems so wrong.
Well, and
nothing
Marky
against
Mark
him, but like,
even worse than that. Yeah.
Say it again.
Said the Marky Mark casting is even worse than that.
And I don't know anything about Uncharted, but I mean I haven't played those games, but with what little I know, it's like that character should be older. He should be more rugged. I don't see it. Like I don't get that casting choice at all. And Holland's not doing anything really different, at least from what I can see in those trailers.
No, absolutely.
Date in the commentary.
But no, watch Devil All the Time. It is
a
really hard watch, but it's very good. And Pattinson's in it too. There's a lot of really good actors in that.
Let's do it.
Let's kick some ice, boys.
So, Beyonder's voice sounds a lot like Dormammu did. Have you had that thought? Or not Dormammu.
Oh, no.
Was it Dormammu or Mordo? Who was it? The Doctor Strange villain that made...
They're both in it.
That made Carnage.
Mordo, I guess, technically makes him, but Dormammu is like the one he's working with.
Yeah,
Both
I think Dormammu had that voice because Mordo was voiced by the guy who did
Chairface Chippendale. I remember you telling me that.
Yeah.
So it probably is Dormammu.
I don't know if it's the same voice, but it's just weird that, like, two cosmic entities on completely different sides of morality sound the same. He's more evil than anyone I have ever encountered. That's one of my favorite Kingpin lines in the show.
I also, this is like really small, but it's something my brother makes fun of a lot, but I also laugh every time he goes, Smythe.
He has the same problem that Lex does in the World's Finest episodes of Superman, where it's like, why would you ever work with the Joker? It's just preposterous to think that you could actually have an alliance that would work out with this, like absolute psychopath. And especially with Spider-Carnage, because it doesn't seem like it would take long to figure out that he actually just wants to kill everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's trying that hard to hide it.
Oh, no, he's completely insane. He's got a mouth on his mask. Inherently, you don't trust people that have that.
You really shouldn't trust that.
And
three of man has a mouth on his mask.
And three of like the 5 people in that room, and one of them was him, had that.
That's how you can easily tell the difference between good and evil.
Yeah.
Bad guys have mouths on their masks.
Tell me one good guy that has a mouth on his mask.
Oh, that's so good. I've never had that thought. That's really funny. But yeah, and I also really like the idea of Spider-Carnage. I mean, Spider-Carnage as a name is, of course, silly. But I also really like the idea of that because it's not just obviously the far opposite of responsibility, but it's also taking Peter Parker where he starts to its furthest extent, where he is completely selfish and doesn't care about anybody else whatsoever. It's like almost like evil pragmatism. Like, I hate the world so much, I get the opportunity, I can just completely take everything out. So, like, before he learns that lesson, Peter Parker always just wants to get, rich and famous. And we've got, the foil for that, too, with the Metal Spider-Man. And then, the far opposite evil version of that is so selfish, I want to destroy everybody.
The Spider-Man just finds a box of grenades and just starts throwing them.
People in the comments are telling you about heroic characters that also have mouths on their masks. The Power Rangers have mouths on their masks.
Yeah,
Terry McGinnis has a mouth on his mask.
They don't move, though, for the Power Rangers. They don't talk with them. They just have mouths designed on their masks.
Does.
Different. Yeah, but I mean, he was made for a cartoon.
You know what?
He's not a comic book. He's not a comic book character.
Neither is Spider-Carnage. He was made up for this show.
Things out of a certain orifice here. He is the one exception. Okay?
Are you going to say it or shall I?
What's
He's
that?
the exception that proves the rule?
Yes.
Whatever that means?
All I'm saying is that Kingpin was dumb enough to trust 3 guys with mouths on their mask and a guy who has giant, like, laser shoulder things. That's on him at that point.
I also want to mention that for a show that's not allowed to really do anything violent, I gotta really credit it for creating a character in Spider-Carnage that is legitimately kind of disturbing, at least for the show. Like, as disturbing as it could be. The voice is creepy, the look is creepy.
Absolutely. It's a really good design of mixing those 2 characters. I love that the Beyonder puts the mutation Spider-Man and doesn't do, like, anything to make sure that his mutation doesn't break out in the middle of their mission.
That's a really good point. Are we to assume that there are only 6 universes that have Spider-Man in them, and he was just stuck with those? Because if he had choices, I don't understand his choices!
Well, it's like, okay, Spider-Man got to pick his own team for Secret Wars, and he only had one liability, Iron Man. This time he's stuck with 2 Iron Men.
At least I would argue 3, because the metal guy is also kind of a liability. He keeps like leaping before he looks, and
he's at least like tougher than Iron Man. But
sure, but I'm just saying he's a liability, and we see it in that episode. Like he's a liability in that the rules of his universe work differently than they do in the other realities, sort of. Where, and I like the kind of meta-ness of this, where like, well, he's always won before, so he just assumes he will. Like everything always works out his way. Well, that guy's a liability. Then you have a Spider-Man with no powers. And then you have Man-Spider. Like, so 3 of your 6 are kind of a bad idea to have there. A couple things real quick before we get into this next episode about Man-Spider. I love, you were talking about the end of that. I also love that cliffhanger is, like, the Man-Spider cliffhanger. Because I think that happens over a cliffhanger before. I might be wrong about that.
I think so. Isn't it like the Punisher walks into like the building and he's like a giant spider? I think so.
Yeah. So that's fun. And you're kind of just waiting for it to happen at some point. But I also think, I mean, it's a cool... Maybe it would have been a missed opportunity not to get to see that again. But again, it makes the Beyonder look like an idiot. I think it would have been smarter for the story, at least, if it was a Spider-Man that found a way to keep his 6 arms, like in the What If issue where that happens.
Oh, certainly, yeah. And you would play more with the alternate universe thing, too.
And then you wouldn't have you wouldn't have the time question. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, okay, are we earlier in his history, or is it just happening now for some reason? Like, it's kind of weird, right? Like, it'd be better if it was just, I've always had 6 arms. Or, like, ever since then, I've kept them, and I found a way to hang on to it without mutating farther.
Well, yeah, and they definitely, I think, overall could have gone cooler with the different Spider-Men they, like, brought in. And I think that's a place where, like, yeah, you could have done something way more interesting than just, he's just that mutation one, and now he's going to mutate mid-mission.
Yeah, because it's cool that they do that version. The Doc Ock version is kind of whatever. They don't do anything with that. It's just, he's got 6 arms. He got them from Doc Ock. Moving on.
Yeah, and one of them's just an actor, which, like John Kelly said, they don't even bring him. So, like, automatically they're down 1 person. But it'd be like...
They hold him back, and then he ultimately will... I mean, it's nice that he actually will be featured in Matter. Because he'll do a really important thing in this episode. I just mean like earlier on. But that's not. Yeah, but my point is, but that wasn't planned. It just works out that way. Like, what did the Beyonder and Madam Web think he was gonna do?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he thought that they could use him as like a bullet shield.
They thought he was gonna use his acting powers.
Exactly. He would charm his way.
Monologue Spider Carnage to death.
He was the Han Solo pick, or like the Johnny Cage. He would just walk in and just like be that guy.
It's that fake it till you make it thing.
Exactly.
Now look, if you just keep pretending to... I had this conversation with somebody recently. Was it you? I can't remember. The whole fake it until you make it thing was like, that's not what that means. You can't just pretend like you're Spider-Man and now you have spider powers.
Oh no, that wasn't with me.
Man, what was the context of that? I recently had this on a show. Anyway, all right, here we go. Let's watch the final episode. It's called Farewell Spider-Man. And get ready to press play when I say now. I'm just about to do that. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
But that would be like, there's that dumb Will Ferrell, Marky Mark comedy where they're cops, and The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson are like perfect cops in that. They're like action heroes. And they have that like fake it till you make it thing. And there's the part early on where they're on top of a building and like the criminals are getting away. and they're like, let's just like jump and we'll land in a bush, man, and we'll chase them. And then they jump off and they just hit the pavement and die.
Because that's what would happen. So I'm gonna quote a Tick episode now. This is the world. It's where you keep all your stuff, and now it's gone.
This is the world. This is the world on drugs. Any questions?
This is Spider-Man. This is Spider-Man on Carnage. Any questions? Do you think, looking back, well, I was going to say the show is well remembered. I guess it depends on who you talk to, but I think the people that still remember the show really fondly, some of that has to do with the end of the show and the fact that this was like a actually a really fun event and stuff. Like, I'm not sure how well the show would be remembered if it weren't for this finale.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I do think that helps it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, a lot of these shows didn't really have an ending, and this one had a cool one, and that was unusual.
Well, and even then, people have like fought to get like a ending with the whole MJ stuff with this.
That's true.
They really want that sixth season where Spider-Man travels through like time and universes and fights his villains as different historical characters.
Yeah, I don't need that really. It should be Spider-Man kills the Marvel Universe.
Oh, that'd be awesome. And he just walks around with a bunch of web nooses and he like hovers above them and then catches them.
John Kelly, how come Spider-Man doesn't have any costume on his other arms? Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh yeah, true.
Because he had
well, you know why?
Because they're using the model from before. You know, one thing I learned watching the show is that when you're at Kingpin's headquarters and that big door opens from outside, nothing good is ever coming from that big door opening.
That should go into just funny line deliveries there.
What's that?
Is when the door opens and the thing goes out and Spider-Man's just standing there and he has the most pained way that he said it where he's like, "We've run out of time." But he's just standing there.
So I'm not sure how much Spider-Carnage is used outside of this show, but I know he shows up on a cover of one of a recent tie-in from something. I think it was that a couple years ago. It was that big Carnage event. I think it was it was like the Deadpool crossover. I think he's in that. Oh, and like it's this design again.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And that won't be hard because he doesn't have any powers.
That's a mistake. Kingpin, they should have tied the show together, and instead of Kingpin saying, "I'll tear you limb from limb," he should have started crushing him so Spider-Man could say, "He's gonna tear me in half." Because that's what the show always does.
I thought you were going to say, "I'll chase you to the ends of the earth." And I was going, that doesn't even make any sense. Why would he say that?
Well, he can say that when Spider-Carnage goes into the Iron Spider universe. He can just yell that into the portal.
Is it interesting to you that... I don't know, maybe this is interesting. Because Kingpin... Because obviously there's a lot of Kingpin plots in the show, and he's kind of the mind behind, a lot of villain plots.
He's kind of the main villain of this show.
He is. But I was going to say, it's maybe kind of an interesting coincidence anyway, and I'm going to call it a coincidence, that this is a Kingpin story where he is finding out that there's other dimensions and isn't doing this on purpose. and is like unwittingly about to destroy the universe. And then in the Spider-Verse movie, it's the opposite of that, where it's Kingpin again, and he's intentionally opening up universes trying to get his wife back. Like, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird coincidence that they're both Kingpin stories, but he has opposite motives. I just had that thought, so it wasn't fully formed, and it took me forever to explain it.
That's okay. It was worth it.
Sure. Thanks for that. It wasn't, but thanks for that.
I like that they just had like a dead Kingpin with them for a minute.
Yeah, I had that thought. So Blue Dragon 5 mentioned a lot earlier that apparently there was indeed a Madam Web figure, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know what kid would really want to play with that. Like, you just float her around and just keep going, behold!
I hope she had an ability where you press a button and, like, pink smoke comes out of her.
That'd be awesome!
Have I ever told you about my Revenge of the Fallen? Or Revenge of the Sith? Have I ever told you about my Revenge of the Sith toy thing? Where when that movie came out, I was like, what, 8? So I was like, oh, like I want to get some toys from this, Mom. And she was like, okay, well, I'll take you down to Walmart. And we go, and it was an entire aisle of just pregnant Padme figures.
Oh,
and like
you
every
have
now and like maybe a Mon Mothma mixed in here and there, but that was just it. And it was like, okay, let's just go home.
I guess I don't need her.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah, do we really need a flashback to the previous episode? Like, it's a two-parter that probably aired together. I actually don't know if they aired together, but they probably did.
He should have like landed in that universe and been like, oh, I'm in this new universe, and then flash back to Madam Web telling him that she was going to send him here.
So AMC Comics says that they did Funko Pops for this show, and I have not seen those. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know
there's some
that.
Madam Web and everything.
That's pretty cool.
Stephen Murphy, Avi Arad didn't want Madam Web in the show because he was afraid his company Toy Biz would not be able to make an action figure of her. But Simper won out in the end, and a figure was made. Interesting. Well, I can see why he'd be concerned about that.
Mm-hmm. It's weird they even made a toy for her, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're using the term action real loosely at that point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, same thing with like a Professor X in a wheelchair. Like,
would she be attached to the like big thing behind her? Like, can you take her off of that? Like,
why would you want to?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I've probably talked about this before, but have you ever seen or had the Professor X toys from the first or second X-Men movie? I guess the first one they made toys for. Have you ever seen that?
No, I had a bunch of X-Men toys, but I never had any Professor X's.
Okay, because I have a couple different versions of that, and it's hilarious because they intentionally made it so that you could take Professor X off the wheelchair, but he can't stand up. Like, like they made his legs paralyzed intentionally.
Sorry, Professor X, even in toy form, you can't stand.
There's just these flimsy legs intentionally. We're like, you can't stand it up.
I remember I had a Wolverine where he had like little like claw things that you could like plug into his hand, and those got lost immediately, so that sucked. Way to design that. So
the way that robot blows up is hilarious, and I love that scene. Mm-hmm. Where it's just two Spider-Mans talking to it, and it cannot deal with the input, so naturally it blows up because everything in the show explodes. It's like watching Kirk talk a robot into committing suicide, which happens like 5 times in TOS. John Kelling, why did they put Aunt May on the show then? You didn't make an action figure of her.
They didn't have Aunt May, but they had Aunt Anna.
I mean, but to be fair, and you know, I never want to give Avi Arad too much credit, but I mean, that is a costumed character. If you're thinking like, you know, we could pick somebody else that kids would actually want to play with, as opposed to, you know, side supporting characters that just have to be there for the human characters. Like, You're not
I
going to
want
expect in the 90s action figures of those characters. There's your win, Stacey.
I want an Anna Watson toy that's got like a string and you pull it and it's like, I don't like that Peter Parker. That your nephew is no good.
Oh, something I meant to mention at the beginning of the first part is when they go to the Spider Carnage universe and the city is all in shambles and it looks like the apocalypse has happened. It really seems like the only people that are still alive are J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie Robertson, and that's it. Like, everybody else in the city is dead. It's just dead. The broadcast, and because one of the goblins is even like, you're broadcasting to no one.
Well, it's especially funny because that bomb still goes off, and the only people that end up in that like Beyonder world is those like 3 Spider-Men and Kingpin. So I guess they were the only ones left at the end.
Yeah, that's true. You got a couple of villains and then 2 members of the press. That's it.
I hope that the rest of the world is normal and it's just New York.
Where it's like the alternate present in Back to the Future 2, where you just have to imagine that the rest of the United States is fine. It's just Hill Valley.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is the good of spider sense if you can't actually avoid the danger? It's like, oh no, these ropes are showing up. Well, all right, guess that happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
I love the animation of Spider Carnage turning back into regular-looking Spider-Man, where the spider like recedes into the small spider in the middle.
For sure, yeah, that's really cool.
I've said this before, but I think a lot of the best animation in this show is in these last 2 episodes. It really feels like they were able to take more time on it somehow.
Yeah, they probably. I wonder if the other episodes in the season are maybe like a bit sloppier because they spent more time on these. I like that even when he's just regular Spider-Man, Spider Carnage is kind of glossy.
Yeah.
That's a really cool touch.
No, they're not going to tear each other apart. You have to worry about that. Because there's too much censorship for that. They're just going to roll around for a while.
It's that Spider-Man versus Wolverine thing where they're just kind of awkwardly rolling on each other, and Hobgoblin's like, it's a fight to the death.
And every time something happens, like he makes a big blade, you immediately know that something is going to stop this fight. Because what's he going to do with that? Like, he's not allowed to do anything with that.
You know what this could have used, though? Him turning to Gwen and being like, if anyone's more deserving of this, it's you!
Man! Isn't it kind of sad that Spider Carnage is infinitely cooler than actual Carnage in this show?
Yeah.
And also scarier.
No,
like,
because actual Carnage talks like he's a high-pitched Wayne's World character.
He just seems like a goof.
Extreme close-up, man.
I know I'm real stuck on this character parallel thing, but real quick, the other thing I really like about the idea of Spider Carnage is that so many of Spider-Man's villains are feel like, you know, what could have easily happened if Peter Parker just, you know, made a wrong turn early on somewhere. Like, there's a lot of Spider-Man stories that kind of suggest that he easily could have been a member of his own rogues gallery, and then we just make him that with this. And I'm sure there's other stories that do that I'm not thinking of, so I might be giving this way too much credit, but I just like it as an idea. Like, yeah, he's going to get talked down way too easily when we bring Uncle Ben in and all of that, but on paper, it's all a really good idea, regardless of execution.
Even with execution, this is kind of a better version of what the Injustice movie thought it was doing.
Yes, and I did not have that thought while we were watching it, but I should have. That's a really good
I
point.
I kind of thought of that when we started. Um,
Yeah, boy, that makes it worse, doesn't it?
because they are very similar scenes. It's he gets like the one person that can talk him down.
I mean, it doesn't help that this is supposed to be the end of a long show, and that was supposed to be the start of a long thing that ends prematurely for no good reason in the third act.
Well, yeah, and this
Stephen
is
Murphy, this is something you won't see in No Way Home. Well, let's see. I mean, I don't think exactly this.
No, I want this. Uncle Ben shows up and he talks Willem Dafoe Green Goblin down.
Wouldn't it be amazing if the first and only time we see or even reference Uncle Ben is he shows up from another universe?
No, I want. There is one theory that will never happen, but it's something I heard, and it is so bad that I want it to happen really badly. Which is that in No Way Home, Aunt May will be like, "Oh yeah, like Parker is actually like my maiden name. Like that wasn't Ben's name. His name was Grimm, but he got lost off in space."
No.
And I want that so badly. Because I want Peter Parker to have weekend visits with Uncle Ben, who now lives by himself. And he's the Thing.
Peter spends his weekends on Yancey Street.
Exactly. Think about how amazing that would be.
Sure. Sounds awful.
That's how he's in the Fantastic Four movie. He's just like, "Hey, Reed, my nephew's over for the weekend."
And now, ironically, the Fantastic Four movies just can't get away from Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery in the same way that Spider-Man movies are just Iron Man villains.
Yeah, exactly. The main villain of the first Fantastic Four movie will just be the Shocker.
These other idiots could not have possibly been leaders. It's a really good thing that you worked out okay.
Why do you think that?
I
What do
don't
you know that I
understand
don't know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't get it. It's like she's talking about my universe. You need to come here and meet Stan Lee, who created you here.
And she sends them by opening up a portal, like up in the sky, so that they fall into the city, and one of them doesn't even have power.
It's really lucky he didn't splat on the sidewalk. Am I remembering this right? That Madam Web is voiced by his wife.
Yep, that is true. Yeah, Joan Lee.
And so they're obviously doing a fun layered thing later when she says, "I think he's pretty special" or something like that. About
It's
Stan
kind
Lee.
of unfortunate then that they didn't do the I mean I love Ed Asner in this show, but that like original Stan Lee idea of him being J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't do this if you did that. That'd be weird.
No, of course. We're reusing so much animation here. They had like 2 seconds of footage they were just looping. It was like the 60s show when he swings.
That is true.
Oh my god, don't zoom in on him. I don't like that.
I also like the line that he'll have here where he's like, "How do I get down? I guess I could just wait for some other character that I invented to show up and carry me."
But instead a portal opens up and Steve Ditko comes out and he pushes Stanley off the building and then goes back into the portal.
No! I mean, it's 22 minutes. So I can't complain about it too much. It would have been nice if they they could have maybe elongated that a little bit. Although I don't know what else you would have done with it exactly, but
Hmm.
I guess I'm just thinking if you're gonna do the meta thing where it's like you were created by this character or you're created by this real person, it'd be cool if we could make the whole thing more about that. Finally,
Yeah, and I've never known like how I feel about that Spider-Man meeting Stan Lee at the end, because it's like a nice cutesy thing, but I don't know. I don't know where I land on that.
that's fair. And it also kind of comes off like, well, you don't have your girlfriend, but you get to go see this guy you've never heard of that invented you in another universe. Like, so what about that? And then, we'll go find her. She's out there someplace. You deserve, and I love that line delivery. You deserve some happiness. Kind of suggests that he's about to get everyone else he's ever known killed somehow.
Exactly. He's gonna go kill every MJ on every universe until he finds his.
Busted Sam. People in TV are far too comfortable standing next to rooftop ledges.
I know, right? I couldn't even stand on a roof.
That is true. Subject says, so that's how it ends. Yep. It ends on a cliffhanger.
Like.
While it's ending. Which is fine.
Okay.
Because again, I don't need to see that. It's like, okay, he's gonna find her
great.
at some point. That's fine.
Dagon Spear beat my Steve Ditko thing by saying instead it's he comes out, pushes Stanley off, and then takes credit for making Spider-Man. Imagine that, though. Like, Bob Kane is an intergalactic, interdimensional being that goes around killing creators and taking credit for their creations.
Bob Kane kills the comic book universe?
Bob Kane kills the creative universe.
The creative universe. That's amazing.
Imagine, like, Bob Kane, like, he makes it so that he created the Bible. That'd be awesome.
Batman Rocks, it's a great way to introduce kids to Stan Lee. My question would be, even at that point, how many kids that were regularly watching that show wouldn't already know who that is? Because when I was growing up, Stan Lee, at least in my world, was still pretty well known, and everybody seemed to know who that was. Like, I'm sure a lot of people younger than me would look back and see all the cameos in movies and stuff and assume that it's just their generation that saw that much Stan Lee or were aware of him. But, like, maybe it was just because I was also reading comics, but, like, Stan Lee was everywhere, even in the 90s.
And even at this point, like, he was the narrator of the PS1 game. And I always thought that was way cooler than just him meeting Stan Lee.
Yeah.
And he does that for a few games. He's the narrator of Shattered Dimensions, too.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, because it opens up with the, like, greetings, true believers. Oh, yeah.
And obviously, he was in a lot of video games and all kinds of things once he started doing cameos, and he was everywhere. Yeah. But he's in one of the Lego Avengers games where I think you can actually play as him somewhere.
You can play as Stan Lee because he can swing, he can light on fire, he can turn into the Hulk, and if you beat him up, he has an adamantium skeleton. They gave him, like, everything.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, and he's got Cyclops' laser vision.
Did you know that they did a thing like that with, or not like that, but did you know that in one of the Lego Batman games, or like a Lego Justice League, whatever, I guess that wasn't a game, but maybe it was Lego Batman 3, I forget. But did you know that they did a thing with Adam West?
Yes, I do remember that.
Where he's like a hidden collectible in levels, where he's like off in a secret area somewhere, where he's like yelling at you to help him like get out of wherever he's at. He'll be like just standing in like on a rock in a plume of lava, like, hey, I'm over here, like, come help me out.
Yeah, because that's what the Stan Lee thing in Marvel is too. Like, you can play as him, but he's also in every level, and you have to save him. And then DC went, let's do that, but with Adam West. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the exact same thing.
Yeah, because in Lego,
and it's not Adam West in a Batman costume; it's just Adam West.
Yeah, because in
Get a
Lego
suit or
Batman
something.
2, they have just like civilians that you can save, and then they did Lego Marvel, which has Stan Lee's that you can save, and then Lego Batman 3 changed it to its you save Adam West's.
That's really fun. I think that
They
stuff's
sh-
super classy.
they should have added Bob Kane as a playable character though, and his like method of attacking is he throws Bill Fingers out of his hand.
Oh my god. No.
He just as a projectile Bill Fingers, who is
He just-
playable.
He- he's just throwing like actual giant fingers at people, and it's like, what is that supposed? Is this supposed to be like Bill Finger? Is that what we're doing? It's like a metaphor projectile.
Yeah, it's fingers, and they say Bill on
Is
them.
it Bill on them? This is awful. What are we doing? Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this marathon with us. We will be back with you again probably next week. Things are a little bit dicey right around Christmas. Next week will be the last week before I go on a couple of week hiatus for Christmas. Going on trips and things right after that. But I think the plan at the moment is to do a comic review next week, Austin. Isn't that what we were talking about? I guess we can go ahead and reveal that. I don't know if we're going to do that live or pre-recorded.
Yeah, I'm good with whatever. But we are doing a Spider-Man life story.
We've gotten a lot of requests for that recently, and obviously next week is a big Spider-Man week. We've got No Way Home coming out, and that's obviously why we decided to go ahead and do this now. So we thought we'd keep it in the Spider-Man realm, and people have been asking for vaults, and we haven't done any. I haven't read comics in like 2 months, so I'm kind of itching to read some comics.
And I've only been reading Man-Thing, so it'll be good to read some Spider-Man.
You've been reading Man-Thing?
Oh yeah, I will be the only Man-Thing expert. I tells ya.
Are you bored? Like, or are you finding yourself like trying to get into this because you just like the idea of like being the
No,
only
Man-Thing's
person,
awesome.
and then you're like, oh, this actually isn't that great. Like,
Have I shown you the artwork from like the first issue? It's so good.
really? Yeah, you have not.
Or from his origin. I don't think it's the first issue. I think it's like a later thing, but it is beautiful. I love Man-Thing. He's
I'll have to look at that. I've not read any Man-Thing except for the terrible R.L. Stein like first
which we
couple
talked
issues.
about doing a vault for, because you like R.L. Stein and I like Man-Thing, so
Like is a strong word, but I grew up
You
with
have
Goosebumps, and I
experience
find
with-
R.L. Stein very interesting.
exactly. But we'll meet in the middle for that, because it's like 90 pages.
Yeah, it'll be no sweat to get through that. But anyway, well, thanks a lot for watching, folks. We'll see you again next week, and I hope you are having a good holiday season. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin. The day goes.
Bye, everybody. I'm going to go shoot some Bill Fingers.